Shrewd manager Christianity's position. More reasons to equate the Mandylion and the Shroud of Turin are intriguing, but incomplete. This video discusses two more artifacts which, if confirmed, place the Shroud in Constantinople from the 10th to 13th centuries and in Edessa prior. The Shroud of Turin blog is a wealth of diligent research and informed conjecture. For the first artifact, we'll summarize the blog's articles on the Chartres Cathedral in France. Professional photographer Roberto Falconelli photographed the artwork. Here's his photo of the crucifixion scene. His close-up shows a stain shaped like a number 3, obviously matching the shroud's famous forehead bloodstain. This is compelling visual evidence. We even have a very clear path from Chartres back to Constantinople in the 12th century, where, we've argued, the shroud was known as the image of Edessa or Mandylion. In 1147, during the Second Crusade, French King Louis VII visited Constantinople and venerated the image-bearing cloth. Louis returned to France in 1149. The crucifixion panel was crafted soon after. This article dates the panel to 1150, so we have an undesigned feature of real blood contouring a wrinkled forehead that we can cogently tie to Constantinople's image of Edessa. As video 4.1 points out, copying requires design and intent, so the shroud can't be a copy of the crucifixion panel, but the panel can be a copy of the shroud. This is impressive, credible evidence, but we have two questions. Why don't other photos show this detail? And why are Falconelli's 25-year-old photos nearly unknown in shroud studies? Search the megasite shroud.com. Only one result mentions his photo, Falconelli's own presentation. Before considering the photos to be settled fact, we'd like other photographers to corroborate. The story of how the Chartres Cathedral avoided destruction during World War II shows a fascinating coincidence. The Americans feared German snipers were perched in the steeples and towers. American Colonel Wellborn Griffith Jr. questioned the order to bomb the building. He snuck behind enemy lines into the cathedral. Finding no Germans, he rang the tower bell, rescinding the order. So what's the coincidence? The cathedral and crucifixion panel were spared August 16, 1944, the Mandylion's feast day, exactly 1,000 years after the image of Edessa arrived in Constantinople. Griffith was killed in action later that day. A more famous artifact is the Hungarian Codex from the 12th century. It's Jesus in a shroud-like pose, hands crossed over groin, fully naked, bloodstain above his eyebrow. He's even missing his thumbs. Video 1.6 offers a medical rationale for this on the shroud. And here's an L-shaped pattern of circles, just like the shroud's burn holes. 4 sets in diminishing intensity due to how it was folded. Is this proof an 1190s Hungarian artist knew of the shroud? We can reasonably trace the Codex to 10th century Constantinople, so it's worth considering. The Codex was produced during Hungarian King Bela III's reign. A Roman Catholic, Bela spent a decade in Constantinople, engaged to the emperor's daughter. He had the motive, means, and opportunity to commission Mandylion-based artwork in Hungary. These sites discuss the Codex. This article applies probabilities and Bayesian analysis to reduce subjectivity on the Codex Shroud link. This site, abbreviated as LGF, illustrates doubts. Here's what we think. Other hands on the Codex lack thumbs too, but they make sense. They're holding objects or angled away from the viewer. Jesus' hands, however, are different. Since they're at different angles, and both hands press against his body, one or both thumbs should show. Do an experiment. Have a friend lie down and cross wrists like Jesus. You'll see thumbs. See the colorful object on the lower panel. Is the pattern a stylized herringbone weave? Maybe. It looks a lot like this magnification of the shroud. By comparison, though, a much smaller badge from 200 years later simplifies the weave more realistically. Maybe the Codex illustrator copied the shroud but lacked skill, or relied on memory, or tried to evoke but not reproduce the shroud. LGF says the object is a sarcophagus and lid. We disagree. Admittedly, the Codex object is stiff and not very cloth-like, but it appears as a single object, long and flat, folded, or bent. The examples of sarcophagi, however, show two distinct solid objects, a 3D lid that angels sit, stand, or apparently surf on, and a box Jesus or angels stand in. LGF says the circles are a decorative element, like these examples. We disagree here too. Unlike every other group of Codex circles, which are bordered or outlined like embroidered bands and trim, the two L sets are randomly located within large fields. This is important. If the two sets of circles are copies of the shroud's burnholes, all doubts about the Codex are immaterial, and the shroud was known in Hungary by the 12th century, before the earliest radiocarbon date. So what's our position on the Chartres, Codex, Shroud links? Based on a simple risk-reward calculation, we're not investing in either position without corroboration. As for reward, what does either position provide that we don't already have? From other evidence, we've already concluded the shroud is the Mandylion, the radiocarbon tests are unreliable, and the archetypal images of Jesus, dating to the 6th century, copied the shroud, not vice versa. As for risks, the damage to our case's credibility would be real if we base it on such uncorroborated evidence. In sum, our position is that there are just too many open questions to add these artifacts as proof the shroud is old. We advise waiting for confirmation. Next, liturgies and veiled references in the New Testament.